In addition to assessing a business's local listings, you also want to evaluate to what degree the business has locally optimized their website. It should take no more than 10 to 15 minutes to evaluate these basics at a glance. And what we're really looking for is to see if the business is making the most of their website content to help support their listing. Alternatively, they could be providing unclear or contradictory information on their site that the search engine could find and get confused by. This is relevant for all business types, but is most significant for multi-location businesses and service area businesses. Let me show you why. Here are two examples of this challenge. In this first example, let's ask, how does a business signal that they serve a wider area? This is the challenge faced by most service area businesses. So here we see a roofing contractor in Kirkland, Washington, and they've used a strategy of buying an ad, like we can see the little green ad in the top left and then the green pin there associated with their ad. So they've used a strategy of buying an ad to extend their reach into the greater Seattle metropolitan area. And the reason for that, we can assume, is that most of their customers are over in a different geographic area, over here. So whether I use a near me search or a geo-modified search, and you can see here that the boundaries of the town where they're located is labeled as Kirkland, right? So if we're using geo-modified search, they would show up in Kirkland, but not if we're saying roofing contractors in Seattle, for example. So they're going to show up far from their customers. And in this case, what should this business do to show up organically for this other area, right? So that's the question. All right, let's look at example number 2. What if I have multiple locations and want to make sure that they're not all competing with one another? Okay, so let's take a look here at the home improvement stores or Lowe's home improvement stores in Seattle. And what if I'm this business owner here, North Seattle Lowe's Home Improvement? How do I make sure that I'm optimizing my site given the fact that, let's say, there are, a few other Lowe's Home Improvements in the area that share the same name, same brand? The way that we'd help search engines differentiate locations or identify us as being associated with another geographic area is by leveraging our website signals, and that's what this lesson's about. Let's take a look at this checklist that you can use in these situations. Now, this might seem like a long list, but we'll go step by step through them. And once you get used to this, it shouldn't take more than 10 or 15 minutes to cover a website content audit for local signals. So I'm going to use this example for the first few list items. This is a Pilates and yoga studio on Vashon Island, which is just outside of Seattle. Beautiful little place. You should definitely check it out. This is a small brick and mortar business called Studio Luxe Vashon, and you can see the listing information here. Okay, so first item, is the correct name, address, and phone number on each page? Let's take a look. Here we have the home page and the About Us pages listed. Both of these are core pages for a site. That is, you can kind of think of them as being part of the main navigation on the site. And sure enough, at the bottom of the page, we see some of that information. We have the address and email, but we'd want to improve this with the correct business name and phone number, right? So small area of improvement that we could say for this particular business. We actually also want to verify that we see the same website that correlates to the listing, right? So is the listing and the website information the same? And are they correct? Here we can see that the addresses match up, and then we'd have to ask, are they correct? Well, we need to verify this with the business owner. Okay, so next up, let's take a look at the contact page, also a core page on this site. And we want to verify that it's shown on the main navigation and that it also contains the complete name, address, and phone number in an easily readable place. All right, so here we can see that indeed Studio Luxe Vashon has the contact page linked from the header navigation menu. And when we click on it, it takes us to a page that has the correct and complete address and phone number. So we'd want to add in the correct complete name to this page right above the address and contact details. Next up, let's check the title tag for the core pages. You can do this by either right-clicking on a page in Chrome and selecting Inspect or View Source, or use a very simple tool like Mozbar that shows meta tags and similar for any page that you're on. The title tag is literally the title of the page. So it's important to have this as a ranking factor since it describes succinctly what the page is about. For local businesses that want to associate themselves with a specific town, you need that location in the title tag. So let's take a look at Studio Luxe Vashon. Here I use the inspect feature in Chrome on their homepage and then looked for the title tag element in the code. And sure enough, you can see the word Vashon there. That is the name of the town where they're located. So this is great. It also contains their full correct name as well as some of the value driving capabilities that they offer that may or may not be used as categories or subcategories in their listing. All right. Next, let's evaluate the geographic related content on core pages. This is a way for service area businesses to signal that they serve multiple towns, for example. Based on who you link to, what resources you have, who links to you, etc., you can signal to the search engine that indeed you're a participant in the local communities you serve. So let's take a look at Studio Luxe Vashon. Now, on their site, in their main navigation, they really don't have a ton of additional pages. This looks like a relatively new site maybe, so it's possible they're just building it out. But I do see this link called More. And when I click on this, what I'd expect to see is some content about their location, right? So in More, maybe I'd see something associated with their relationships that they have on Vashon, partner stores or similar. We see this one page for another practitioner in the area, and I'd say that this is an opportunity for them to improve and continue to build out more content about the town of Vashon specifically and their place within it. And if you wanted to go deeper, you could also evaluate links to the core pages and see if they're getting links from other local businesses relevant to this service. All right, next up, let's look at the discoverability of reviews. Can we find reviews easily or is there an easy way to leave reviews or testimonials? I navigated to the contact page, which is probably the closest thing to reaching out to this site. And though there isn't a clear, leave a review link, we do see links in the footer that lead to platforms where reviews often take place. If we click on these links for Facebook and Yelp, for example, you'll be able to leave a star review there. So I'd say maybe this is another opportunity to make it more clear where to leave reviews and maybe even add in a few reviews on the page to encourage others to do so as well. All right, so I'm going to switch gears now and use a different business for the next few examples. We're going to depart Studio Luxe Vashon, bye guys, and begin taking a look at multi-location businesses. For these, the first thing we want to look at is, are the separate pages for each location? That is, does each listing have a unique page it can point at for a multi-location business? Right? And so for these examples, I'm going to use Mod Pizza, not just because they have a name similar to ours, Moz versus Mod, but they do a really good job at this. They have a very good best practices, so we can kind of explore what Mod does. And they also have a ton of locations, not just in Seattle, but all over North America. And we want to ask is, do these locations all have their own page? Okay, well, let's take a look. Here is the Mod Pizza homepage. And up at the top, you can easily find a page called Locations. Okay, so let's click on that. When we click through, we get to a long list of locations organized by state. Let's pretend that I go to the ones in my area for Washington and then look up a specific location. In this case, I'm going to use West Seattle. Okay, so here is the page for West Seattle location. Looks great. It's really well optimized. Let's take a look at some specifics here. The URL is literally /locations/West Seattle, right? So it's like if I'm machine reading this, I'm saying this is obviously about a location, and the location is West Seattle. The title tag is West Seattle-Seattle, Washington, which is the name of the location. And the first main element on the page is the name, address, phone number, along with the hours of operation. So solid work, Mod. This is really how it should look. Okay, so the next one in this example is pretty easy. We should ask, does the business have multiple websites for their multiple locations? All right, and it's not uncommon, and it's understandable that businesses would start building out their own network of locations and think that the best option is to create a new website for all of them. Maybe they have different owners, or maybe they have different marketing teams. There's a bunch of reasons why this could be the case. However, If the business has the same brand with multiple locations, the best practice is to consolidate those into one website and have specific pages on that site optimized for each location. In the case of Mod Pizza, we've already seen that this is the case, right? And so I used Lowe's for an example earlier. You can imagine that any of those kinds of business we'd want to ask, do you have different sites or do you have just different location pages on the same site? And the best practice, obviously, is to consolidate and use the one site. Okay, last but not least, let's look at this use case for service area businesses. As mentioned earlier, if we're a service area business that wants to expand their chance of ranking organically in other cities, we'll want to send signals that we operate in those cities. So in addition to having a unique page for that city, we want to see if the content on the page is taking full advantage of the local signals that they can muster. Let's use Mod again, even though they don't deliver, they're not a delivery pizza type of place. Let's just pretend that they do and see what they've done to help out their local presence. All right, so here's our West Seattle location page again, and if you scroll down, you'll see some content on the page that speaks specifically to the West Seattle area. They talk about their community engagement. They even link to a Facebook page specific to that store. And if you scroll down even further, you'd see images for their community involvement in the West Seattle area. And all of it's appropriately tagged. Like all of it says, meta tags of West Seattle mod. So there you have it. Website content audit for local signals just shouldn't take too long to complete. And it will give you a lot of ideas for low-hanging fruit to discuss with your clients at the outset.